Alright everybody, today we are going to dismantle completely an iPhone 4S. This is not going to be a repair, this is going to be complete dismantle, but you can use our other videos in conjunction with this one in order to either change your screen or change the mid-frame completely. Right now we're going to take apart every single part of this, not just the screen. This particular unit is an iPhone 4S, it has a bad screen, but we're not going to use it, we're going to discard the screens. And by the way, BareMods does purchase old screens, so save them up and send them in. So now we have an iPhone 4S. First thing you need to do is check the screws here to see if they're Penelope or Phillips. Usually two kinds. For the most part it's Penelope. So we're going to remove our SIM card, one thing usually forgotten. So make sure the SIM card and the SIM tray is out. This is a Verizon, so we'll set that aside. If you don't take that out and try to take out your motherboard, you could crack it. So let's take out the screws, the Penelope screws here, and you can purchase all of the tools at BareMods.com. We have starter tools and we also have more advanced tools as well. I'm using a screw mat here. This is an iPhone 4 screw mat. Highly recommended. It's a magnetic mat, has places for all the screws. In this particular case we're taking out all of the mid-frame chassis screws and all the parts, so this particular screw mat is a little bit more designed for just changing screens. Well, we've talked to the guys over there and they're considering changing that. So we have our Penelope screws out and we're going to take this and gentle push up and the back comes right off. And here is the back of your iPhone 4S. Opened up. Not sure if any of you guys have maybe seen that for the first time, but it can be intimidating, but that's okay. We'll teach you everything about it. The first thing you should do is remove the battery, and you definitely want to make sure that the power was off too. I didn't turn it off with the video because it's dead, but make sure the power is off before you open this thing up. But just to be safe, we are going to take a Phillips screwdriver and we're going to remove, first we're going to move this bottom screw, okay, and then we're going to pop that onto our screw mat so we don't lose the places. The screws are all different, so be careful. Then we're going to take out the second screw and pop that on our screw mat. There's an EMI shield right here. Do not lose that. We're going to have to put that back. Now what we'll use is a plastic spudging tool. We'll have most of these on our website at BareMods.com, and we're going to just spudge this. Oh boy, there is an extra screw in here that I did not put in. Glad I caught it. We're going to spudge this out right there, and this EMI shield just popped loose, so have a good pair of tongs that we also sell on the site, and make sure that you have this EMI shield. This thing can wreak havoc if you don't have it out. So it has a nice little place on the screw mat for that, and we've already spudged this out, so we have no power to the iPhone now, so we're safe. So most of these batteries are stuck to the chassis, so you'll have to use a metal spudger to kind of spudge this. This one was a little loose, looks like somebody's been into it. That's probably where the missing screw came from. And we are going to take this battery out and remove it. So now we are totally safe to dismantle the rest of the iPhone. So typically the first thing I do is I remove the EMI shield at the top. This EMI shield right here. And we're going to next remove the Wi-Fi antenna, which is right here. A lot of companies call this the Wi-Fi antenna. That's wrong. This is actually the GSM antenna. There's in the 4S, there's another antenna here. That's a dual antenna. So we're going to get to that in just a second. So first let's take out the top screw of our EMI shield, put that on our screw mat, then the rest. These are very small screws, easy to lose. Please don't lose them. You'll need them. And then the final fourth screw for the EMI shield, and we carefully, very carefully and gently push this down. There is a flex cable right here. I believe that's the camera cable that comes across, and it's latched right here. So you need to push this down gently to get this to unlatch. Do not force anything on the iPhone because it will break. And I highly recommend having extra parts available whenever you do things like this. So I'm just going to pry this up a little bit and push a little down, and out it comes. We'll put that on our screw mat. Now you can see we have some flex cables here. We have our volume camera. and our power flex, the proximity flex is all right here. We have our LCD and digitizer flexes right here, and we can pop those out, but I tend to leave that for a second and take off this other shield right here that holds the interface flex cable. Take that off, take this one off, then again carefully remove your shield, put that on your screw mat. Now you can see there are screws holding down the logic board assembly. Okay, so we're still not done yet. There is another EMI shield here at the top, and I don't ever do these in exact order, but enough of an order to make sure that you don't break anything. So here comes the EMI shield. This shield shields the Wi-Fi signal so it doesn't fry your brain. So that goes right there. So now you can see there is another screw here. This is a special screw that has a screw on top and on bottom, and then there's one here as well. Usually we take these out first and last, but I'm going to now get rid of the Wi-Fi antenna. And that is a longer screw that goes here, and that's why screw mats are such a godsend, because all these screws are different sizes. So there goes that screw. There's not a place for it on the screw mat, but there's picture representations, so I'll put it approximately where it belongs. And the Wi-Fi antenna is held on here by a connector. I'm going to gently spudge that. Again, be gentle with these things because they are sensitive. And that's popped loose. So essentially this item is completely loose, and there's a little bit of adhesive holding this down to the headphone assembly, headphone jack. And so I will probably use a little bit different set of flat tongs to remove that. You can also spudge this as well, but this kind of acts like a spudger. So let's try the spudger instead. Gently, and then the adhesive comes out, and there's our Wi-Fi antenna. I'll put this in my parts tray. It's nice to have these trays just to separate everything, keep everything organized. Now we can spudge out our flex cables. So again, very carefully, don't force. Pop it out very gently. Okay, so here comes our headphone jack flex. Now we're going to take out the camera flex and the power proximity flex. Okay, so these flexes are loose. Don't forget this little teeny one under here. Often the first time I ever did this, I forgot that, and I took the logic board out and I ripped it right out. Had to buy a new flex. So we'll take our LCD and digitizer flexes out. Okay, and this is a little bit malleable here, so we can it holds its shape, so we can kind of hold that back. And our flex for the camera is last, and the camera pops right out. We'll put that in our parts bin. Okay, so our flex cables are loose there, and then we have one more flex here for the interface. There is adhesive under the interface, so we'll pull that up gently and off to the side, which exposes our vibrator motor right there. Okay, so now that those are loose, let's take out the connector for the GSM antenna, which is right there, gently and around and out of the way. And we will unscrew our ringer assembly. This is your loudspeaker right here, and your microphone for when you're talking with your hand up to your face. We're going to remove this, and then there's also a retaining plastic piece here for the corner of the ringer, which is right there, if you can see that little triangular piece. We'll take the screw out, put it in its place here on the screw mat, and then put this on its place, just to keep it easy. The ringer assembly also has the GSM antenna connected to it, and there's prongs here that hold it down. We can just kind of pry this loose a little bit, and out it comes. These are the prongs to the GSM antenna. The prongs connect to the body of mid-frame and create a antenna. So there goes that part. Okay, So now we're going to remove our logic board. So first thing we have to do is remove the special screws, and I usually use a flathead screwdriver for that. So I'm going to take the top one out here and put it in its place on screw mat. Take out the bottom one, and reassembly will do that the opposite direction. So we'll put those in first when we put it back together again. If this thing gets in the way, this is sticky right here, so you can just take this, push it back, and it'll stay out of your way. Usually we can't reuse that. Sometimes you can, but you know, we sell replacements for those, so no big deal. Alright, so now that we have the specialist ones out, there is a hidden little screw here. This little culprit can cause you to break your logic board if you don't know that it's there. And there is a piece of insulating tape that's on top of that. This one's being a little stubborn, but we'll get it. Okay. There's also an EMI shield right here. It's a copper EMI shield. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a screw there. There's an EMI shield right there. So we need to make sure not to lose that. Those are the other little things that like to fly away, and I've had to chase a few, trust me. So I'm unscrewing that, and that sticky piece wants to stick to it, so grab that, put it in its place right there on the screw mat. Grab my EMI shield, grab that, put it in its place anywhere on the screw mat, which has a little place right there, and take your adhesive tape, and we'll save that for later. If you don't stick these to a lot of parts or oily things, it will re-stick. Alright, so that culprit's out. Let's take out the next screw, which is right here. And the nice thing about the screw mat is it has places for screws, so if you're missing one, you can look at your screw mat. It actually is a guide to help you install and uninstall. So the vibrator motor screw, I just took that out, put it out there. Okay, so for all intents and purposes, we should be completely, I'm looking at my screw mat, everything is pretty much out, and I give this a little whip. Yes, it's loose. Okay, if there's any resistance at all, that means there's something you forgot to take out. Do not force this, ever. If you feel any bit of resistance, look at your screw mat or just look all over. Now this is very, very loose. So I know that we're good. So let's just get these flexes out of the way. Okay, and be careful handling this thing. This is where all of your brains are. Your apps, memory, processors, everything is in this ingenious little logic board. So we're going to set that aside on something like this plastic tray. Alright, so now the sensitive parts are a little bit, we're kind of not quite out of the woods, but we're almost out. So now what we want to do is we want to remove the flex assemblies. So there's flex assemblies all here. There's the home button on the other side that makes contact here. So we have to remove the LCD screen. So the LCD screens are removed first. Unfortunately, there's a vibrator motor that's in the way of one of the LCD screws. If you're changing the screen, you don't need to remove these side screws completely, but in this particular case, we're doing complete disassembly. Oh, by the way, this little plastic piece, the first time I ever took it out, I was wondering what the heck is this. This fell over to the side, but this goes right here on top of the logic board, and it goes against your digitizer and LCD flex cable so that it doesn't get broken, or if it doesn't rub against the logic board, either damaging the logic board or severing the cables. So remember that to keep this, because you will need this when you're reassembling. So we'll put that over there too. So now what we want to do is carefully spudge the vibrator motor and try to retain as much adhesive on the bottom of this as possible, because we can reuse this. Even though it won't make as good a bond as a fresh one, it's still possible to put it back. So I spudge that out, and as you can see, the adhesive down here, I can probably put the bottom part back a little bit, but if you don't, it's not the end of the world. But as long as it's a little bit sticky, and please don't handle them with your fingers. Try to handle them, I'm holding this on the other side, but I'm not touching the adhesive. So I'm putting that aside with tongs so that I don't really, as you can see it's still a little sticky, so I don't handle it too much. Now there is a rubber sock or boot in the bottom of the interface flex cable. This is the interface flex, is where obviously you plug in your charger. We're going to pop this boot out, and then there is a lever that holds your home button. We're going to pop the lever up very gently. Not sure if you can see that, but there's a lever right there, similar to the iPhone 3. And so we're going to gently remove the home flex out of this. Okay, so there's your home flex, but it's on the other side. So we're going to have to remove the LCD in order to get to that. So I popped that loose, and let's just go ahead and take out the LCD, which will make things a little bit easier. Now that the vibrator motor is out, I can remove these LCD screws. These are connected to the socket LCD. There is a flat head screw. We put these in these corners. And there's also a washer for each one of these. So don't lose the washers or the screws. Things are easy to lose with these things. That's also why magnetic screwdrivers are really helpful, because sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. Okay, so now that those are out, there's another washer there. Now that those babies are out, there's 4 smaller screws in each corner of the LCD that's holding it. And there's one here, 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 which is hidden, also by tape, and here. So we'll remove this piece of insulating tape, just like the other one that was on the logic board, and put that over by that one. And now we can remove all 4 of these small screws. Put them in a little group on the mat there. Okay, so now the LCD is completely loose. You may have to spudge it a little bit. If it's a manufacturer original, they put adhesive on the edges. So carefully spudge it. Try not to pry it. But that popped loose. Once you get it, just a little bit of minor spudging will get the rest popped open. Okay, be careful of this. You gotta kind of wiggle it, push it to the side to get this little L part out of the way. So our LCD is completely out. There's our home button. If you like, you can, if you have a bad screen, you can save the home button. You can just push on the home button on the other side, get the gasket to come loose. We do sell these gaskets in this metal square shim in the middle. So if you want to have extras, I would recommend having extras, because they're not as sticky when you reuse them. It'll work one time, but more than once it probably won't. So I will just get that adhesive off, and looks like the adhesive is coming loose, so it's really not going to be good that much longer. So this is, you can send this LCD in to us and we'll give you cash for it, so that's always a good thing. Alright, we'll set that aside. Now on our other side, we've already loosened our home flex, so we have to take the cable, the home cable, and we can just either pop it in from this side or pop it out. Now that's out. So okay, now please be careful with this step. Just kind of work just gently pull up. If you ruin it, if you break it, you can always replace it. They're not that expensive. But very carefully take your home button out. And that side is sticky. The replacements will have adhesive, a backing on it, so you can re-stick them. Okay, so that part is out, and we are ready to unscrew our flex assembly, or interface assembly rather. There's a little piece of, looks like, I think it's like a tamper type tape. It's over this, a little yellow. You can kind of push it aside if you don't want to look like someone broke into it, but if you're going to modify it, obviously they're going to know. And there's not a place on the screw mat for this, so we'll just put it in its approximate space. Okay, both of those screws are out. Now, again, sensitive. This flex assembly can break, so we're going to do two things. We're going to pull this side and get that loose, and then on the other side, this is where your microphone is. It's very easy to break this, people, so please be careful. There's a tab right here. I'm going to take a flathead and I'm going to very carefully put it on this side and just kind of pry up very carefully. Okay, and that's going to come up. Okay, so now that's loose. Okay, so now that that's loose, I can pull upwards a little bit and remove the interface from the port. There's a little bit of silicone adhesive at the bottom. I just take this off. I usually don't put it back on. It's usually not that big a deal. These things aren't waterproof, so it doesn't really matter. Put that aside. Okay, so our flex is out, our home interface flex is out, home is out, so the bottom is done. Now these babies right here are a little bit sensitive too. In order to retain the in order to remove the flexes here, this is your earpiece, your proximity sensor, your power, this is your headphone jack. Okay, first thing we need to do is remove our front camera. It's facing the back, but it's actually facing you when you're using it. This is our front camera. So we're going to remove this retainer for the front camera there, and we're going to put that on our screw mat. Okay. Now, the camera comes out free and clear, so we'll put that aside. That one's easy. Now that the camera's out of the way, we can remove our headphone jack assembly. And in order to do that, I like to get the proximity sensor out of the way. There is a retaining clip right here above the proximity sensor, and I put my tongs here and just kind of gently pry either the side or the top, but usually the easiest thing to do is pry the side. Sometimes they're stubborn. Sometimes you got to do it from the top. Okay, so this retainer is out. This holds the proximity in place. And now that that's out, the proximity sensor will come loose just by coming straight up. Okay, so that just came straight up. Do not remove the earpiece. Leave it on there. It's sticky. It won't re-stick. So just leave that as is. Now there's two screws here holding the power button, and we're going to remove those two screws. So there's one. Put it in its approximate place. There's not a place for it on the screw mat. And two. It almost flew away. Alright. So now the power part of the flex is loose. Now the power button will pop right out. It's loose. So there's our power button. Put that aside. So everything for this particular flex is, for the earpiece and the proximity sensor flex, is loose now. So again, very carefully, we're going to remove this. It's just sticky now. There's nothing else holding this. So just with your hands, and just kind of feel the tension you put on, remove that. That's where it sticks right here, is the earpiece. The earpiece sticks onto here, that flex sticks on the body, the chassis, and sound comes out through there. So we'll put that aside, preferably where the sticky part's not touching anything. Alright, now here comes a little bit of a trickier part. This is very easily damaged. A lot of people don't know this, but this hole on top is a microphone. It works when you're talking on speakerphone or certain applications use it. They changed it on the iPhone 5, but on the 4 is particularly like this, as well as the 4 and 4S. There's a plastic microphone cap. The microphone is stuck to the cap. There's a hole that goes all the way through here, so the sound can get down into it. We have to break apart the seal where the microphone cap is, and then once we do that, we can remove the headphone jack. If we don't do this right, we can easily break this microphone. It's one of the most severed parts and one of the most replaced parts of the entire unit. There are screws here holding the silencer switch here, but you can't get to this one unless you get this headphone jack out. So we're going to get that out first, get the microphone out, then we're going to remove these screws. So what I do is I very carefully take my flathead and I just pry just a little bit. It doesn't take much pressure at all. I just pry it loose. Don't try to take it out. This is connected to this headphone jack. Okay, it's one flex assembly, one flex cable that goes all the way through down here. If you break it, it's done. It's over. You have to change it. So now, once I got that out, I pry the back, and you can kind of peel this a little bit here. Now we're still screwed down, so don't go all the way. Just enough to loosen this flex cable a little bit. Just to that point. And then I can pry this a little bit, and the butt of it will come up. Now you see why we loosen that? So that we have slack. Now that that's out, my mic cap will come out along with it. Now you see why I was warning you. Because this entire assembly was connected to each other. There's just a very, very thin piece of flex that's holding that. So my headphone jack is now out of the way. So now I can access the screw that is right here holding the silencer switch assembly down. Okay, so there's one. Again, this is not on, there's no place on the screw mat, so we'll put it in its approximate spot right here. And then we'll do the next screw below it, and then our silencer switch will be free. Alright, so that's done. You could leave that in its place. It'll kind of hold its place because the sticky part's still holding. So now there's 3 screws holding the volumes. There's one for the top and bottom and one in the center. So we'll remove those babies right now. So we're starting for the top. I'm holding this upside down, so. Then the middle. Then the bottom. Alright, so all of that is free. So what we'll do first is we'll remove our keys. Just push that back a little bit. And our volume, keys are free to come out. So that's volume right there. Put that aside. Our silencer switch. Please be careful with this because you could break it off of the metal. And they kind of come out together usually, but just pull it right off. Okay, so now this is free to come out. Again, gentle. Our headphone jack wanted to pop back in its place. It was missing. It didn't want to leave. Alright. Just a little bit and it's out. We are done. Everything is good. Alright, now if you want, you can, if you don't have an extra battery sticker, you can remove this and pop it into another assembly, but you will not have these sticky pieces. These are almost impossible to take out. That's why our battery stickers come in one piece. You just stick it on, peel it off, and it's sticky again. Actually, there are 2 more pieces that are easily forgotten. I've done this before. There is the sticky piece that goes into your sock, your boot for your microphone. I just take a flathead screwdriver and pop this out. I've been doing this many phones, and you know, we all forget pieces. But there's this one, and I pulled it off with as much of the adhesive as possible, so it's still somewhat sticky. but if you could use silicone glue on that, just a very very thin silicone gel to re-stick the bottom, or you can just leave it loose on when you change it out. And then there is another plastic piece here for the speaker part. Try to keep that adhesive as much as I can. Alright, so there's that piece. Now let's take a look. There's actually one more piece. The headphone ring, some new mid-frame chassis come with it, some don't. But for your parts collection, just push that down, it'll pop out. And that is your headphone ring and the little insulator that goes underneath it as well. So, just keep those. Sometimes the mid-frames have them, sometimes they don't. It's like if you're changing it out to like a blinged out mid-frame, or so a lot of times I'll have it, but just in case, keep it. So yeah, so then now we are done. We have taken everything out. Everything is complete. You can reuse this for another iPhone, for another customer or friend or whomever might need it, or you can just, I usually keep these just to keep them handy. I rarely put them back in its stock. Most people want the blinged out ones with the jewels and whatnot. So looks like we have everything out of this. This LCD heat dissipator sticker will not come out. We do sell them. They're about $1 on BareMods.com. So you definitely have to put them on a new mid-frame assembly, unless you already have a partial assembly that has it, and we sell those too. And that will come complete with all of these. Just about every piece except the logic board in the front and back will be on it. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at sales@BareMods.com, technical questions, whatever it may be. Also, make sure to subscribe by clicking at the top, and you can subscribe to our future videos. This is Human with BareMods.com.